everybody. Welcome back to the Popcorn Square, episode 23. We're going to go through a full recap on this episode of all the movies and shows we've been watching lately. Also, we're going to touch a little bit on cinema and the direction that we're seeing in the theaters so far this year, as well as some of the films that we're looking forward to coming out in the next couple of weeks. So just to start it off here, I'm going to talk about really the movies that I've seen have all been kind of older movies and just trying to catch up here on streaming services. So what I've mainly been watching recently is like Fall of the House of Usher. I've been watching Avatar on Netflix. So those are both Netflix shows. Some of the movies that I've seen recently, kind of older movies, are Five Nights at Freddy's, which came out at the end of last year, as well as some of the shows on like Prime and Netflix, such as Lift. That was a Netflix original one with Kevin Hart. But those are kind of like what I've seen lately. Let's throw it on over to Kage. How about you? What have you seen recently as far as shows and movies?
So for me, I recently watched Five Nights at Freddy's. Like I said many times before, I'm a gamer. I've only played that once. Wasn't my jam, but I can definitely see the appeal. So the movie was interesting. Another thing I've watched is, obviously you just said it, Buttons, the Avatar series. I'm a huge fan of the original show. I used to watch that with my little brother a little bit when I would catch it. And I liked it so much, I went out and actually bought the Blu-rays for both Airbender and Legend of Korra. Absolutely eat that up. It's a good time. It was really interesting to see the adaptation. I had my picks on it. We can talk about that in a bit. But then also another show, one of my coworkers turned me on to was, I believe it's called Ninja Kamui. Let me see. Yeah, Ninja Kamui. It's on HBO Max. It's an anime, very dark and gritty anime. It's kind of like Punisher on steroids with ninja. A guy loses his family because he's in a ninja clan, or I should say he left the clan and kind of went into hiding, and he's just trying to live a normal life, and it's like, no, you don't leave the clan. And so the whole movie is this like family man who was once a just a savage assassin, like using the most of his abilities to get revenge. Kind of I don't know, I want to say the John Wick.
John Wick of anime?
Kind of.
Interesting.
From what I've seen in the show, it's a very new show. There's only 4 or 5 episodes. They're about like 30 minutes a piece. So it's an
ongoing?
It's an ongoing thing.
Okay.
So I don't know if the latest episode put out today. I'll have to check. But so far watching it, it's pretty badass. This guy, he's absolutely relentless. And now that I say it, like, maybe I can say John Wick the anime, but he's not doing it with guns. Think about it. He's a ninja. And because it's anime, of course, you have to have robots and just high sci-fi elements.
Right.
I highly recommend Neff. I think you might enjoy that one.
Yeah, I might have to check that out.
Kamui Ninja.
Alrighty. So I've watched actually. About 2 days ago, Midsummer. I watched that for the first time. Kage's a big fan of that, like Barbarian and others. But yeah, I watched that interesting film. Dude, I actually watched Star Trek Beyond finally, and that's the third one.
Wow. Yeah.
All right,
that's
so I know you
that's
like
a,
that,
that's a,
Buttons.
that's
I actually
an
thought it was
older
fairly
one, yeah.
decent.
Oh, I liked all of the newer.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Star Trek
I gave it
films.
like a 7 out of 10. I thought it was cool.
It's entertaining.
But I do need to go back and watch that first one again, and then Into Darkness with Khan and stuff like that.
Into Darkness is probably my favorite.
Right, so I'll probably go back and watch those. That's the two from just from a movie standpoint. As
Right.
far as TV shows, I haven't really watched anything in that realm as far as TV goes. I'm interested in the Shogun show on Hulu, but I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to actually sit down and watch that. But that might be something that I actually look into. As far as like, guys, if we talked about shows and movies that we've seen lately as well, like we've been watching a lot of movies coming out in theaters as well. The Beekeeper, Night Swim, Imaginary, etc. So, those are kind of in our list as well. But outside of going to like the movies like we had just spoke on, just kind of things we've been watching in our own homes. Yeah, Midsummer for me most recently, and then Star Trek Beyond, most notably that I can really remember. And then I was watching also the sci-fi adaptation of Dune that Kage lent to me. So I'm watching all those things simultaneously. But yeah, interesting so far. What else do we got? What do we got next, Buttons?
Yeah, well, actually, one other one that I forgot to mention, because I kind of binged through it pretty quickly, was Resident Alien. And it's actually a sci-fi show.
I heard good things about it.
Yeah, they're gonna do. I think they're working on the last season of it right now. It's only 3 seasons long, so I've watched the first 2 seasons, and I've got a kind of a quirky sense of humor. So for me, this is like a very heavy sarcasm, heavy, just kind of like in your face. Like the comedy's dark humor. It's definitely got some.
It's quirks.
Yeah, it's got its quirks, but it's still kind of grounded in like this Patience, Colorado, small town. The alien comes and he's kind of stuck here accidentally on the planet, and it's like him having to cope with living in this small town while trying to figure out how to get off the planet because his ship has crashed.
It's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Awesome.
It's on Netflix right now, but it is originally a sci-fi show.
Okay.
So the 3rd season will release this year on Sci-Fi.
Wow.
But for anybody who's into that kind of like humorous alien kind of sci-fi kind of
Is
show,
it kind of like Men in Black?
No, it's closer to
With what I'm talking about, like with the sci-fi alien humor.
Yeah. There's some of that humor in it. I would actually kind of almost think it's a little bit more like Invader Zim.
The live action.
Yeah.
Whoa.
All right, I'll watch it.
He's in.
You have me.
Kage's in.
I'm in.
Before Buttons continues, how could I forget? Because I talked to them off the podcast. I started watching Sopranos again.
Oh, that's
so that's
right.
another thing
Yeah,
that I'm watching. So I'm
Sopranos.
kind of juggling multiple shows and movies right now.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to forget about certain things and then something will jog your memory. But yeah, that's why I say Resident Alien. If you guys haven't seen it and you're into that kind of quirkiness, it is very much it's very Alan Tudyk, I believe his name is, as the actor.
Alan Tudyk.
Tudyk. Okay. Tudyk.
Interesting.
He does
Is this an
his
American
character-
show?
Yes, it's an American show. It's based out of, like I said, Patience, Colorado is the town that they're supposed to be in. But I think Alan might not be. I think he might be Canadian. But either way,
He is.
It's very funny. His take on being an alien stuck on Earth. It's very humorous. But moving on, we're gonna go ahead and talk about some of the cinema in general, the movies that we've been seeing in theaters, kind of how we are feeling as far as the direction that it's going. I know at the beginning, we were talking earlier about all these movies that are coming out this year, and we were like super excited for, as far as the content that was coming. And then some of the movies that we've seen have been hit or miss. Some of them have been, falling very short on, what we were expecting the box office to do, as well as, the reception of the audience in general. So, we've talked about some of the other movies like Beekeeper. Argyle was one that we discussed.
Yep.
We looked at, obviously we did a big section on Dune, and I think we pretty much all agree that Dune has been probably the biggest movie thus far this year. But we also watched like Night Swim, and that was in like January. So we've had quite a few large titles come out that me personally I think could have done better. in theaters, but I think that's more of a state of the economy as well as the impact of inflation.
Good points.
But I'm going to go ahead and throw it off to Neff. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, I agree with everything Button said there. I think we're all in agreement that Dune is the most successful and probably the best film that we've had so far this year. But yeah, we've had some decent things here and there. I would say overall, if I were to actually grade the year so far, I would say probably a C minus. And you could probably argue lower, but Dune is kind of picking it up, right? Kind of dragging along. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year, but we've had some films that are okay, right? Like we said, Dune is a standout. It's kind of an outlier there. But funny enough, and I think I talked about this on The Weekly, but I got some numbers for Night Swim. Budget 15 million, box office 53.5 million, so that's a 3X. That's a success. Just from a business standpoint there, I think we talked about Argyle a little bit too in some chats that we had. Of course, we knew that, with the word of mouth with that movie, like we talked about, good and bad, you can be affected either way. I don't think it got positive word of mouth, so I think that kind of killed its traction. The movie really should have did better, but there was a lot of things that I think, they just didn't do the correct way because you had the cast. You had the cast, and I think you had a decent story. But once again, there's more that goes into portraying that and actually, facilitating the idea in a live action way. And it just didn't really work out for him. But $200 million budget for that.
Way overflated.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's part of the issue too. Like we say, there's more elements that go into making a film. You have a great cast. Writing's not that good. Direction's meh. And then the budget's blown up, you know what I mean? The marketing probably wasn't that good. Although I think the marketing was decent for the movie. I saw commercials on it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like everything has to be hitting on all cylinders to have a success. That's just how it works. But $200 million budget, $95 million at the box office. So that kills you, you know what I mean? Whoever's funding that one, I didn't really look at that right now. That's like, okay, we got to write that one off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that probably will put it in the lead as far as the biggest flop, even though I don't think Madam Web is trailing that far behind.
No, Madam Web is definitely doing better in comparison. I think Argyle, it's arguable, funny enough, that will probably be the biggest you could say flop or mishap from a movie studio of the year. I'm trying to get some information on Beekeeper because I know I sent this to you guys as well. But Beekeeper, funny enough, I don't know if it was when I was going to see Dune for the first time because I did watch it twice in theater. I think I looked over in wherever I was watching a movie and noticed that The Beekeeper was still being shown in theaters. And based off that, I was like, man, this thing has legs. And so Beekeeper, crazy enough, $40 million budget, $152 million box office. So almost a 4X on The Beekeeper. Once again, I think I talked about it on The Weekly too. It's one of those ones that kind of flies under the radar. I think I was comparing it to The Accountant with Ben Affleck, which is a pretty decent film as well. And there's going to be another accountant film if you guys haven't seen that.
All right.
But it's a pretty cool film.
Madam Web, I just looked it up real
What you
quick.
got for Madam Web?
Madam Web had an $80 million budget, and thus far is only sitting at about $42 million.
Is that domestic
box
or is that
office.
worldwide?
I believe that is its
Hold up.
domestic box office. Worldwide puts it just under 100.
Yeah, so it $80 million budget, 97 box office worldwide. But yeah, it's
like
not
I
going to be
said-
a success, but like we said, it's still in that realm of a complete mishap. And guys, we've talked about this with Sony. We talked about this with Venom 3, and specifically a female-led Spider-Man universe cast. This film was extremely important for Sony to knock out the park, to be able to pivot off something other than your two biggest characters in the Spider-Man universe. Spider-Man and Venom. The fact that they could not get this off the ground is a punch in the face. So, hopefully Sony goes back to the drawing board and tries to figure that thing out because that's not good. And we have a lot of Spider-Man-esque movies revolving around that universe that are not going to have Spider-Man included in them that are still coming out. Craven, how is that going to do? Will it do better than Madam Web? We don't know yet.
I'm hope so.
Right, and then we have Venom 3. Now, that will probably do decent. I talked about this, guys, on the weekly. We had Venom 1. It did about 6 to 7x at the box office. Venom 2 didn't do as well, but it's still categorized as a success. It did about 3 to 4x. Venom 3 has a lot riding on its shoulders. What type of ideas are they going to even implement into this story? Because, like I said, this is Tom Hardy's last his last movie as Venom. So
Right.
there's kind of a lot riding on this. Will Venom be a success? More than likely it will, but you still don't want to go in there saying we're just going to kind of throw anything up on the screen and they'll go watch it, because Venom could flop.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kage, how do you feel about the direction of cinema?
Yeah, so I think Neff hit it on the head as far as 2024 evaluating the year. If I had to give it a letter grade, I would give it a C. It just hasn't been that great. We kind of started off strong. We had Beekeeper that flew under the radar there. Really enjoyed it. That was a solid, good time. I just really enjoyed that movie. And Night Swim, it wasn't as great as Beekeeper, but it still held my attention. I enjoyed it for what it was. But Madam Web, Argyle, I'm like, I don't have it in me to watch another bad movie. Come on, Hollywood, do better. And then of course we get Dune, and Dune, everything is chasing Dune right now. Mm-hmm. As far as 2024 is concerned, it is hands down the best thing. And I could be a little biased on there because I am a Dune fan of the lore of the books, but yeah, that was the best thing so far. And now it's kind of disappointing. It's like, that's over.
Yeah.
What now?
Well, to your point, as far as what now is concerned, I mean, we talked about, we're going to have another big one coming out this month at the end of the month, which would be the Ghostbusters movie. Now, for those of you who are a fan of the original Ghostbuster movies, this Ghostbuster is a continuation of the original universe, Ghostbusters universe. So it follows along the timeline of what we're looking at now. There was another movie, I think the original Afterlife came out, I believe, in 2021 or 20.
Let me do some research. You're
Okay.
probably on track.
Right, so that one, this new one, Frozen Empire, is a direct sequel to the Afterlife. And of course, it's got a lot of new characters that were introduced that are supposed to be the grandchildren, the daughter and grandchildren of Spiegler. But this new one, of course, is bringing back those characters as well as the remaining original Ghostbusters, as well as the secretary from the
So they're
original.
bringing
The originals.
everybody,
The only one that I have not seen attached to this is Sigourney Weaver. Now, Sigourney Weaver did have a little cameo in
and it was
Afterlife.
2021, you're right.
It was 2021. Okay, good. So, but for me, I know I'll be going to see this one. My boyfriend is a huge fan of the Ghostbuster movies, so I've already got my tickets bought for those.
Did you get the popcorn bucket?
Do
It's in the shape of a car.
Whoa!
No, I did
I'll
not.
show you
I
pictures.
did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know they had a special popcorn bucket.
Oh, yes, they do.
Wait, did you say it was a
It's
portal
like
or
the
it's a
shape.
trap?
It's the shape of the vehicle that they drive
Oh,
Are we-
okay.
are we
I
seeing
think
a-
it would have been better if they had done the ghost trap. Like, I feel like that would have
It
been a
opens
more
up and you get.
obvious.
Oh,
Like, I feel like that would have been a more obvious popcorn conveying
12-year-old me would absolutely be all over that. But
the ghost trap.
heck yeah, I kind of
Oh, look at that little Ghostbuster vehicle.
Put it up on your.
yes.
Yes. Okay, but so I've mentioned that I'm excited for it. Kage, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you for reminding me. I feel very bad in admitting this on mic. I did not see Afterlife, the first one. I really wanted to. I gotta borrow it from one of you guys
Yeah, I
because
got
I had to. Okay, we're gonna have to talk off mic. I'm gonna have to get a copy of that because yeah, I gotta see it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really wanted to see it, and it's not that I wasn't interested. It's just other stuff came up.
Kind of flew under the
It
radar
kind of flew
for
under
you.
the radar for me. I think there was a little bit of skepticism from me because
Well,
I
after
remember
that female Ghostbusters.
we're not going to
movie.
talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. But like, I'm a big fan of the '80s movies. In fact, it's one of the earliest movies I remember seeing in theaters, so it's very near and dear to my heart. I had the toys. I had I had the little trap. I even had the
action
backpack.
figures.
I had the action figures. I had the slime.
Did you
that I-
have the lunchbox?
Yes, actually,
Okay.
I did because I'm ancient. But anyway, yeah, I was a big Ghostbusters fan. So when I heard the movie was coming out, I was very skeptical, and bad on me because I heard it actually did very well. So I know it did well, so I need to go back and see that.
You're referencing Afterlife?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a $75 million
I heard it
budget
did very
and
good.
$200 million at the box office.
There you
So,
go.
relatively good.
There you go. And
Yeah.
and just the fact that I've only seen one trailer for the upcoming one, seeing that they're bringing back the old, I don't care if they're old guys. I am all for nostalgia. Let's go. It's going to be sad not seeing Egon in there anymore, but we have his daughter, his daughter or granddaughter.
There's the daughter, and then she has two kids. So she has a son that's and a daughter, and the daughter is essentially played almost his character. Like she's
cool.
She is basically got his same mannerisms. She
That's
speaks
really cool.
like him. It's the closest way that they could bring his character back without having his character.
I think that's a very great way to execute that. So the fact that I heard the first movie did so well, and I'm seeing this trailer, I am very excited. So I want to go back and see the first one. Hopefully, before this new movie comes out, I'm gonna see it.
Very interesting. And it says this budget is $100 million.
Yeah,
Could
so
be
they-
inflation as well. True.
They upped the budget, and I don't know if that's gonna hurt them or not, just because looking at the numbers from the first one. However, I think it's gonna do well because I think people are gonna have seen
I think it's gonna
Afterlife
do well.
and go,
I
you
think
know
it'll do
what?
well
They
because
did
of the
well.
ensemble of all the other older
Yes.
characters coming
Yes.
back. I think that was kind of like their wild card. Like, okay.
And not only that, not only having that cast, but like you think of the main guys, but they even brought back the receptionist back, which I thought was
The
kind of
little
she was in,
details.
she was in, so if
She had a supporting
she
role.
had like a
old
little
movies.
minor role. All of the original characters had very little minor roles in Afterlife, but it looks like they're playing larger roles in Frozen Empire.
Now, let me ask you this: as someone who has not seen the first movie to this one, did they bring back Rick Moranis in any capacity?
No, no. Like I said, the even Sigourney Weaver's cameo was at the very end in the trailers.
Well, but that's what I
So-
mean. They brought her
or
back
I mean
as a
in
cameo.
in the end credits. So it was not even part of the main story. You just see him interacting, and it's a little Easter egg, really.
Yeah.
Because what it is it's if you remember in the very first movie, Bill Murray's character is using electroshock therapy
Yeah.
to try and see if it helps with ESP.
Mm-hmm.
So in this little Easter egg, it's him and Sigourney Weaver, and she's using it on him to like kind of train him not to say certain things. Like, because if you remember, he was very much a womanizer in the movies. So it's kind of like that, and they're just kind of joking around.
payback.
Yeah, that
and-
dynamic.
yeah. And
Wow.
but that's all she did in the little cameo. But again, that was in the end credits as just like a little Easter egg for the fans.
And Ghostbusters is this weekend coming up.
Yes, I believe it's the 22nd.
Oh wow, that's coming up.
March 22nd. Yep. So this I
Friday.
guess Friday, yeah.
Yep,
Thursday
this
/
week.
Friday now. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
so,
yeah, we're
I wish
gonna have to get
I would have had you bring the
It's your Friday
DVD.
off, sir.
So you can go.
You're just stoking the fire. But the thing is, I'm not gonna see it until I see that first one.
Ah, true. It makes sense.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna see it.
You
So-
should definitely watch Afterlife before Frozen Empire because
Yeah,
you
for
have
sure. It just
the
makes sense.
introduction of those
Yeah,
characters.
yeah. I definitely want to do that. You know what? I'm surprised. I'm surprised with all the streaming services, like with the movies coming out. Like,
not
okay,
cross-marketing?
yeah. Because Dune Part 2 is coming out, so Dune Part 1 is coming back. It was originally on HBO, but then they brought
Check
it back on
Max.
Netflix.
Check
Yeah,
Max.
yeah. I'll have to look into that.
I was just guessing.
I think it was on Prime for a little while too. So
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of float them around. I
Well,
wouldn't be
we're coming
surprised if
so
Afterlife
close.
wouldn't be
Why
on
isn't
one
it
of those.
already on
They
there?
gear it up.
Well, like I said, it might be on one of the streaming services. I'm not sure which one it would be on. Might be on
It's-
Paramount.
I feel I've
might be
seen
on.
it too, but
Might be on Netflix. I'm not
Is it
positive.
Uh,
Afterlife.
It's called Afterlife,
Yeah.
not the one coming up. But
Ghostbusters : Afterlife.
Yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife. But while you're looking that up, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which would be, Godzilla versus Kong, and then we're also going to touch on the Avatar TV
Yeah.
show because we're getting a little bit into that as far as the pros and cons of the live action remakes.
I want to hear that from you guys.
Yeah, so I mean. But first, Godzilla versus Kong, are we going to see it? Has anybody seen it here
So
in
I
this
know
group?
Kage, he's looking up some information right now. I know he spoke on watching Godzilla and Kong. He's really invested in just watching the story and staying along track with it. So he's going to finish that thing up. Like I said, I've seen, of course, Skull Island. I saw the first Godzilla, I believe it was 2014. And then I think I saw bits and pieces of Godzilla King of Monsters. Didn't watch it all the way through, but it was okay. It was interesting enough to keep me engaged. I don't think I'm going to be watching this one, but I am going to do some research on it and just, really deep dive on it, and so I can speak on it. Of course, I'm familiar with both these characters, so I'm not going in blind, but I was going to watch it, and then I was watching the trailer again. I was like, you know what? I think I'll pass on this one.
Right.
But I think it will be an entertaining film. Is it going to be good based off what we subjectively think is good? Who knows? But I think it will be very entertaining. I think there's going to be some new elements that they throw in there based off the trailer. Looks like a pretty fun movie. There's going to be some serious elements.
Did we
but-
talk about the Rock'em Sock'em robot arms
Right,
and
yes,
stuff like
he's
that for-
King Kong is now
for
a
Kong?
transformer. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like I said, they're implementing some new things in there. But
Give 'em the
I would
gauntlet.
say that personally, I was more excited to go watch Godzilla -1 rather than watch this adaptation of now the King Kong
Yeah,
and Godzilla
that-
versus the new enemy, right? So yeah, I
Right.
think it's going to be entertaining, but that's how I feel. What you got, Kage?
Don't laugh at me, y'all. Godzilla -1 came out this year.
Right.
Okay, that's one we didn't mention when we were talking about
Recapping.
2024.
That was
Right.
23.
Oh, okay.
It was at
December.
the end.
It's December.
Well, I know you guys had looked it up before because they were doing the black and white
Correct.
one.
And that
Maybe
one
that
came
Maybe
out.
that's
version.
what I'm.
It was
Maybe that's
like
what I'm thinking
a
of.
month or two ago that one came out. Yeah, they
Yeah.
did the black and white version, which I do want to see as well.
Okay.
But yeah, what are
yeah.
you feeling about this one, sir?
Godzilla Kong.
Godzilla Kong. Neff and I, we talked about it off mic quite a few times. Me personally, I'm gonna see it just like the Saw movies. I saw all of them. I saw all the Godzilla movies, so I'm gonna go see this one. I do worry that it's kind of falling into the category of Fast and Furious, where they're just gonna keep making more movies, and the more movies, more sequels you make, the more you start to stagnate your own franchise, and that could be a blessing and a curse, because maybe that'll kind of give way to the Japanese version. I think that one surpasses the American one tenfold. So if the American version, if it kind of drives itself into the ground, it's not as interesting, we've seen the same thing over and over again, I think I'd be fine with that ending, because now it's going to give attention to the home players here, the Japanese studio. They did a fantastic job with the first one. We already know that they're making a part 2 to that. That's the one I'm going to be excited for. But as far as this one is concerned, I feel like I've seen everything I've needed to see.
And there's nothing new they can really show us. Like we said, Godzilla, Kong, the new Empire, they're adding a new antagonist to the story, but how many times are they going to continue to do that?
Right, you can only invent
They're milking it now.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like The only thing they can think of creatively is like, let's just introduce another monster.
Right.
And in this case, they're introducing another ape. I'm like, I already have an ape. We already have Kong. So
Right.
how good is this going to be? That being said, yeah, I'm going to go to the theater. I'm going to go see it. I saw the others. I might as well see what they have to offer. I do think it looks good. Not mind-blowingly good.
Yeah.
Is it going to be entertaining? Yeah,
course.
I'm gonna dig it, but I'm not going to be first in line, front row seats. I got to see it in IMAX. It's
Yeah.
not Dune. That's going to be a hard follow-up,
Right.
sci-fi wise. But yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
What do you think, Buttons?
As far as Godzilla goes, I feel like Godzilla's got like this really high track record of these remakes, these reboots. It's the same Godzilla over and over. Godzilla, little tweaks here and there. Oh, his design's a little bit different. Oh, the city he's attacking is different, or his enemy, his combatant is different, right? Or maybe like the origins of him is slightly different. Just in what I've watched in my lifetime, you've got like, I've seen bits and pieces of OG Kong climbing up, and then you've got Godzilla that, again, I've seen the black and white little bits of, the little action figure in the city. And, then of course, when you have the relaunching of these characters throughout that, you've got like the Matthew Broderick version, and then you've got the version with Adrian Brody, and that one gives me nightmares because of those
The
freaking
King Kong,
bugs.
the bug pit.
The bug pit. Oh my gosh. So King Kong with that. And then of course, the Bryan Cranston, his version, which is within the same universe of this.
Yep.
This is the same Godzilla for that. And I liked the first film. I thought the first film was really well done. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed Godzilla in that capacity. And when I watch Skull Island and you kind of say, oh, these are the same universe characters, you've got King Kong and Godzilla, and then I was super excited for Godzilla versus Kong because I was like, ooh, how are they going to marry these two characters together? And then you had the introduction of like Mothra and
Ghidorah,
Yeah.
Rodan.
Yeah, and you were like, oh my gosh, look at all of these enemies. And you're like, okay, sure, that's no problem for Godzilla and Kong to take down 3 of these, giant.
Don't forget Mechagodzilla.
Well, right, but you get my point. You have all of these things and you were like, okay. But after that, I was kind of like, all right, well, I'm kind of Godzilla Konged out. Like, I'm good
Makes
now.
sense.
Like, to your point, both Kage and Neff mentioned, which is like, hey, when you get an oversaturation of these characters, what else are you going to do? What else are you going to bring to the table to make it interesting again? Because at this point, it's like, all right, it was already a little unbelievable when you have like, oh, he's out in the water. He's smaller than a boat. Now he's bigger than a boat. Now he's fighting Kong. Kong is bigger than a building. Kong is smaller than a building. He's bigger than Godzilla. He's smaller than Godzilla.
Yeah, it's like these interesting continuity errors in a sense.
Right. And so you sit there and you go, okay, well, from what you remember, as far as the size and the scale of these characters within their own environments, and then when they bring them into another environment, you're like, that scaling is, all over the place. And you're sitting there going, okay, wait a minute. Like, for example, Kong in general, like you were saying, Kage, you're like, okay, he was supposed to be the last of his kind. And now you're like sitting here and you're like, oh, look, a whole village of them just living in the center of the earth, like Journey to the Center of the Earth, where there's still dinosaurs and stuff roaming around. Just, we didn't know about it. They're just down there this whole time. Like, I was like, okay,
Yeah,
so
I
now
hope
you're
they-
merging.
I
Right.
hope they explain that because it's just like it takes away, because we've talked about this in other episodes, what happens when you make more and more sequels. Because I want a short succinct story because I feel like that has more value as
Right.
opposed to just drawing it out. And I think, unfortunately, that's what the American version is doing. I actually really loved the Bryan Cranston, the first
Right.
Godzilla movie. I really liked this. I was like, ooh, this is good. And now we're just coming, and then
Diluted.
it's kind of, you're kind of diluting your
And
own
it-
franchise.
And, you know, when you brought up Fast and Furious, I thought that was a really good comparison because it does get to the point where you're sitting
Just a
there
money
going,
grub.
well, it's not just that, but the believability factor goes down as well.
Dropping.
Because you're sitting
Yeah.
there and you're like, wait a minute, you told me he was the last one, and now all of a sudden
not
there's
special
this-
anymore.
He's not special anymore, and because you're like, well, but we need more plot, we need more drama.
No, you need more money.
Exactly. Well, not only that is like, oh yeah, here they are. They're not able to do this. Oh, just kidding. Here's Mega Godzilla. Now he is able to do this.
That's where it fell. That's kind of where it fell off for me, personally. I liked that movie with Mecha Godzilla. I feel like they could have and should have ended it there. That's just my opinion.
Good point. That's what I'm about to get into. So, Godzilla vs. Kong, 155 million to 200 million for the budget, right? Estimated, and it made $470 million. So, that's like barely scraping by from what I would say would be a success. And so, with this one, I'm not seeing a budget on it, but I think we're all in agreement that I think this one should be the last one that they continue to do this
Yeah.
Godzilla and Kong ordeal, because now it's funny, that I think that first Godzilla was 2014. It's like, wow, we're going on 10 years of that now. Time
Right.
flies. So
Yeah.
I think respectfully they should stop here, give it some time, let the Japanese people do what they're doing with Godzilla right now, let
Yeah.
them do that, come back with an American version later. I just think it's the right time to do it because, like we said, you're going to start running into that point in time where now you're not hitting green. Now you're just starting to hit the red because you can only keep implementing so many new ideas in a story that's already kind of been diluted out as much as possible.
By introducing a new monster or that, you're starting to just scrape at the bottom of the barrel. Everyone loves a good origin story, so when the very first movie came out and they showed Godzilla come out, and it's like they weren't testing nuclear weapons; they were trying to kill it. Like that was fascinating back then.
Right.
And it's like now you don't need Godzilla got an origin story. Did they even say where Kong came from?
No, that was Skull Island.
Yeah, just Skull
oh,
Island.
okay.
Because this is the same Kong.
Okay.
Yeah, that
My
was
bad,
bad.
my bad.
When
And I
did
did
Skull
see
Island
that.
come out?
Skull Island came out
15?
after. Yeah, I want to say.
And that movie was decent.
Yeah, no, Skull Island was pretty decent. I mean,
Had
there
Jack
was some.
Black in it.
No, that's
one
the Adrian
before.
Brody. Yeah.
So Skull Island had Samuel Jackson
And it also had
and
what's
Brie Larson.
what was the
What?
guy? What was the stepbrother guy? Not stepbrothers.
I know you talking about, but I can't think of his name. It's not Will Ferrell.
He was
It's the other
he
guy,
was an
right?
Anchorman. That's where I'm thinking of him from. But yeah, he's not.
I can't
Will
think of his
Ferrell.
name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Ricky Bobby, Ballad of Ricky Bobby. It was like,
Kong Skull Island had Samuel L. Jackson.
yeah.
Um,
I'm thinking of the guy with the brown curly hair. That's who I can't. He was like a captain looking guy. John C. Reilly.
Yeah,
John C. Reilly.
Yeah, those folks were in there. But yeah, and I thought, like I said, Godzilla 2014 was cool, and I
was
thought
a
I thought
very
Skull
strong
Island was
cast.
cool as well. But like we said, as time continues to go along, you kind of get used to seeing the same thing, and you can only watch two CGI monsters for so long before it starts to
Right.
get dull.
And the fact that they, had Skull Island and they kind of kill off Kong's family, and then now you're seeing it where it's
Okay.
all like, oh,
yeah,
just kidding, guys.
I completely forgot about that. So I just looked that up. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Jack Black was on King Kong.
Yeah, but let's go ahead.
2005.
Yeah, and I mean that wasn't a bad version either.
No, that one was pretty decent too.
Yeah,
Long
and
movie, but pretty decent.
Yeah, it was kind of a long, but
like
like I
3
said,
hours.
that bugs in the canyon scene will give
3
you some
hours and
nightmares.
21 minutes for Kong.
That was long. But moving on, we're going to go ahead and just briefly talk on
Hit
Avatar.
Avatar.
So I know
didn't
Neff,
watch- I
Neff,
haven't
you
watched
have
it.
not seen
Got
it
my
yet,
pitchfork
so
ready.
I will go ahead and say this briefly about Avatar. So I watched it. Me and my boyfriend watched it, and my boyfriend's way more into Avatar than I was. I actually have not finished Avatar. I think I got through like book 2, but I actually think, as far as if you're going to throw it in, compare it to all of these live action remakes that they do of anime and cartoons and things like that, I feel like it was solid for a direct TV adaptation of an anime. But I will say this, is there are certain things where I know they were catering to the fans as far as the character design and character development and things like that. Acting wise, I feel like the acting choices were well done. I know a lot of people throw a lot of shade on the kids, on child actors. And I will say, for me, I could definitely see some of the times where Aang's, the actor that was playing Aang, was trying a little too hard. But for the most part, I thought they all did a really good job as far as the skill and, the lines that they gave them and everything. They delivered them very well. My one gripe is, okay, when you're doing an adaptation of something, just like when you're doing a book adaptation, this is supposed to be the real world. It's not supposed to be any longer within the realm of a book or a TV series or anything like that, an animated show. So even with Avatar, the original series, eventually they got to the point where the characters are not wearing the same clothes throughout the entire freaking season. Like, they change outfits.
Yeah.
And usually it's because they're like, hey, you need to fit in and not stand out like a sore thumb while you're walking through this other nation where they've obviously got different clothing styles. And that was my one gripe with this, where it's like, okay, really? They go to like a desert environment or a tropical environment, and we're just supposed to like be okay with them still wearing like their Eskimo style clothing, in these tropical and desert environments. It's like, no, you're going to put on some different clothes. You're going to put on some t-shirts and some shorts if you're living in, or if you're, traveling through. I'm like, I don't care how cold it is when you're up, in the air, flying through the air or whatever. Like, you're going to wear something different. But that probably is my one big gripe. But otherwise, and I really love, I can't think of his name, something Kim, but he's the actor that played Daniel Kim that played the uncle.
Oh.
No, you're thinking, that was the father.
That was Ozai.
Yeah, that's the father. That's the Fire Lord. No,
I know. I picture
but
his
it's
face.
It's something Kim.
We're looking it up, folks.
Yeah, but no, I really love the uncle's character. I thought he did a great job. Yeah. What about? I'm just gonna go ahead.
What are you
and throw
thinking
it off.
about it, Kage? How'd you
Yeah.
feel about Avatar as a whole?
I know you've got a different view on it than me.
So here's the thing. Okay, when we've talked about this before, when we talked about adaptations, there's just certain things you don't mess with, particularly in geek culture, tend to be very defensive over their material. And I went into it with an open mind. I will say, in line with what Button said, with all the live adaptations, it's definitely one of the best ones. I think they did well with the casting. Paul Soon Young Lee.
I was
He
way
played
off
Iroh.
on the name, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah,
But Daniel, I think it was
Korean
because I was
actor.
thinking of Daniel Day Kim, who was.
Yeah, he was Ozai.
Yeah.
The casting was great in this film. This show. I think they did really good, because I hate it when it could have been a cop out. They could have just said, let's just get AAA actors
Right.
all across the board. No, they actually got a whole bunch of actors we haven't heard of. I think Daniel Kim.
Well, Daniel Day Kim is a big actor.
Well, he's a big. Well, that's what I'm saying.
And so is
him.
Paul Sun Hung Lee.
Those are the only two I know.
Ken Lung. I've seen him in quite a bit.
Okay.
And then the guy who played King Boomy, I can't even want to pronounce his name. I've seen him in a couple things, but he's a
Okay.
lesser known actor.
Now-
But he's done mainly
Yeah,
TV shows. and
I
stuff.
feel like they did excellent with the casting, and also a little Easter egg for those that don't know: the guy, the Cabbage guy, is actually the Cabbage guy from the show.
Wow.
who did the voice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fun fact. Yeah, when he's like, "Not my cabbages,"
Not
I
my
was
cabbages.
I was grinning ear to ear when I saw the cabbage guy. I'm like, yes, they brought him back. But casting, I can't speak enough for. They did well. The special effects were very good. There's a lot I liked about it. Episode 5 on Netflix is where it started to fall apart for me. Okay, where they start talking about the face stealer.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a dramatic moment because here's the thing. For those that don't know, only the Avatar can go to the spirit world. And so the fact that they bring the entire, come on, gang, let's all go to the spirit world. Like, it wasn't like that. It happened. George Takei.
Is Co.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
They
that
got-
makes
they
me
got
that
some-
makes me appreciate it. So they did really well. They did really well with everything, with the casting, with the effects and stuff. But like they kind of
They took more
jumbled.
liberties with the story.
Well, yeah, and
The
I did.
storyline, I guess you could say.
I read some articles on why they condensed the story. They hit the same bullet points, but they just went to that point a different way.
Right.
Okay. They really took a long time in showing how Zuko got his scar. They made the entire group of friends, Aang and company, go to the spirit world. It's like, that's not how it goes. They showed the owl. You're not even supposed to be in.
Yeah, he's supposed to be in book 2, right? The
He's
owl.
in the desert or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, let me just continue watching this and see where this goes. And when they end season 1 of Netflix Avatar, they definitely ended on a high note. They did it in a different way. And as a fan, I was like, I can't help it. I can't help but be defensive and go, well, why?
Not my avatar.
Yeah, Princess Yue, that was supposed to be more of a dramatic moment when she sacrifices herself.
Well, I mean, I thought it was pretty dramatic.
I don't know, the cartoon version, it kind of felt like more impactful. Like, Iroh was pissed because whatever you do to that fish, I'll do to you tenfold. Don't you dare, don't you dare do it. And he does it, you know,
Right.
and like it was more impactful in the cartoon than it was in the show. So they kind of shoehorn some stuff. But to my surprise, reading online, I've been following this on what people have been saying, what other fans have been saying. They've been saying that it's actually good.
Right.
It's actually good. It's so good that the show has been greenlit for other seasons.
Right.
And my question now at this point is, since it's been greenlit for other seasons, that means they got a bigger budget. If they got a bigger budget, does that mean they're going to start spacing out? Because now they have more money to tell? Like, I don't know.
I mean, that's probably a topic for another episode as far as, you know, what we would think that they would do with future seasons. But, you know, I'll just ask you this point blank. If you were a fan, or if you knew somebody who was a fan, or even just somebody in general, would you recommend it for somebody to watch?
I think so.
Okay. And I agree. I would definitely say that even if you weren't like a big fan of the show, I would definitely say it's worth a watch. Again, you're going to notice some little things, but all adaptations are like that. We know this with anything that's either based off of a book or a show or a series, an anime series, or graphic novel, anything like that. There's always going to be a little bit of things that you could nitpick and say. But overall, and in general as a whole, I felt like the show was very well done, and they hit the points that they needed to hit. Maybe not in the original order as the show, and maybe not as soon as we might have liked it, but they did at least go through, you know, all of the important points. And again, like you mentioned, you know, strong cast, and I think that really helped as well, because if we had had a weak cast for this show, it would have hit way different. It would have not been as enjoyable.
Yeah.
Even though the writing was there.
I think a big factor on this being successful was the creators were behind it, at least for a while. Not the entire thing. They did drop out due to creative differences with Netflix.
And that probably has to do with some of the things we touched on as far as them jumping around the storyline.
Yeah, I think because certain moments were less impactful because of how they did it. But my hope is that the show is so good that maybe it'll inspire people, just like with the Dune sequel, Dune movie being so good, this adaptation being so good, maybe it'll inspire people to motivate them to go watch the original series. And that's not to take away from the live action series. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. The special effects were on point, and that very last episode, holy
Cements it.
crap.
Yeah.
Holy crap. You want to know where your budget went?
That last episode.
Whoa.
Last episode, because it was all a lot of talking, a lot of martial arts. I think a lot of people tend to overlook that fact. Is when they made the series, even the animated series, it's grounded in reality, grounded on Asian cultures. They took elements from various Asian cultures and fused it together and made nations, made towns, and these people are very different. The
Yeah.
Fire Nation lives different than Ba Sing Se, the Earth Nation. They all have their own cultures, their own dress. You all got to dress red. You all got to dress green.
Well, right, which again, like I said, that was one of those things that, even though you're doing an adaptation, at that point you kind of want to say, all right, but there's still individuality within that thing. It's one thing for the army to be all dressed the same. It's another thing for your entire city to be dressed the same. So,
The Water Tribe wears blue.
right. But with that, I think we had a lot of good conversation in this episode about, all of the different things that we've watched recently, recapping State of Cinema, going over, our expectations and our hopes for, Godzilla, as well as touching base on what we liked about the Avatar
And
series on
Ghostbusters,
Netflix
yeah.
and yes, Ghostbusters as well.
Can't forget that.
But with that, please remember, everybody, to like and subscribe. Please give us comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts on anything that you've seen recently and we might not have touched on. But that's going to do it for us here at the Popcorn Square. I'm Buttons.
Neff,
Kage.
All right. Have a good night.
be safe.